GBS.
Very good evening. You're joining us live from GBS TV Studios, Nairobi. My name is Beatrice Njeri. Our sign language interpreter is Maureen Chabet. And this is GBS News at 9. Remember to keep the conversation going through our SMS line 21144 and GBS TV Africa on all our social media handles. But first, let us dive into stories making headlines. The cabinet appreciated the fact that the government's intervention have started to bear fruit, with the prices of basic commodities reducing significantly. At the cabinet meeting held today at State House, Nairobi, President William Ruto said cabinet notes with satisfaction that the interventions have brought down the prices of maize meal to an average of 155 from a high of 230 Kenya shillings. The meeting was optimistic that food prices will continue dipping as a result of the ongoing rains and arrival of imported maize in the country last week. The meeting reaffirmed the government's policy of subsidizing production and not consumption. It lauded the continued provision of affordable farm inputs, including subsidized fertilizer across the country. With enhanced production coupled with government strategic policy measures, the cabinet pointed out that Kenya will soon become self-sufficient in food. Meanwhile, the meeting stated concern on the rising case of road accidents in the country. It directed the police and the National Transport and Safety Authority to rein in on the recklessness of roads that has resulted in the loss of lives. Other issues that the cabinet considered included the ratification and the resolutions of the 67th United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, approval of fisheries policy, and adoption of the resolutions of the East African Community Council of Ministers that seeks to enhance integration in the region.
Good morning, good people.
Good morning.
Okay, Mwombe. Our Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this meeting. We commit the agenda of this meeting and all the discussions and deliberations about the affairs of Kenya to your good hands. We pray for your understanding, knowledge, and wisdom to be able to do the right thing for our nation. Thank you for the opportunity to serve this great nation in this highest decision-making body in the cabinet. We commit ourselves to your good hands. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
The Raila Odinga-led Azimio la Umoja coalition has now said it will not have bipartisan talks if they are held in parliament, saying they must be held outside parliament. Addressing the media on Tuesday, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka said Azimio wants to engage in extra-parliamentary talks. Among requests from the coalition, Kalonzo said the governments must take up the hospital bills of all Kenyans who sustained injuries due to police brutality during demos. Let's take a look.
To date, Kenya Kwanza has failed to name the leadership of his team.
Azimio la Umoja coalition has announced that it will not take part in any bipartisan talks if the process is parliamentary.
We remain committed to an extra-parliamentary dialogue that is honest, transparent, meaningful, and bipartisan in conception and execution. Our members of parliament in both houses shall not be party to any other process, and particularly not the one proposed in the motion by Kenya Kwanza.
Speaking at a press conference on Tuesday, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka insisted that the Kenya Kwanza government cannot dictate to them what they cannot bring to the table. The Wiper leader also noted that the delay in naming the Kenya Kwanza team was another sign of lack of seriousness. Kalonzo noted the delay was made worse by the inclusion of members of the Azimio coalition in his team, when the whole country knows that the respect for multi-party democracy is one of the issues they have put on the table.
Kenya Kwanza has failed to name the leadership of his team as a way of stonewalling.
On Tuesday, in a notice of motion, National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah unpacked before the House Business Committee their proposed trajectory the bipartisan talks should take.
With our colleagues in the minority, because we are all intent, and I believe even the leadership in the minority, both in the House and out of the House, are intent on resolving these issues.
The notice unveiled Kenya Kwanza conditions ahead of the talks with Raila. However, according to Azimio, the motion is in absolute bad faith for some reasons. Azimio also claimed that the motion violated the standing orders of both houses in purported to name members of the majority party to so-called select committee without any reference to the minority leadership.
Number 4, last evening, we learned of a motion drafted by Kenya Kwanza leadership allegedly aimed at setting up a joint select committee in Parliament. The motion is in absolute bad faith.
In addition, the coalition claims it has insisted on an extra parliamentary process in view of the structures of debate in Parliament. As a result, Azimio said it will not participate in any such parliamentary process.
We have insisted on an extra parliamentary process in view of the strictures of debate in Parliament. We will therefore not participate in any such parliamentary process. B, the motion is disguised as a product of bipartisanship, when in fact the leadership of Azimio and Parliament were neither aware nor consulted in its drafting. C, the motion purports to name members of the minority party to the so-called select committee without any reference to the minority leadership, in violation of the standing orders of both houses. And D, the motion purports to set the terms of reference and scope of the discussions without any reference to us.
Bitis Njeri, GBS News. The Institute of Economic Affairs Kenya on the 18th of April 2023 shared findings of the value for money assessment study on the leasing of medical equipment project, often referred to as management equipment services, in partnership with Open Society Institute of East Africa. Speaking during the public forum, John Mutua, the programs coordinator of EIEA, noted that the EMIS project that had been shrouded with transparency questions and functionality comes. James Othiambo with that report.
Institute of Economic Affairs Kenya on the 18th of April 2023 shared findings of the value for money assessment study on the leasing of medical equipment project, often referred to as the managed equipment services, in partnership with the Open Society Institute of East Africa.
And in devolution itself, of course, is the area of health. Health is significant for two reasons. One of those is basically outside education. It's the largest footprint of public services provided by the government of Kenya in terms of the number of people, the variety of services.
John Mutua, the programs coordinator of IEA, noted that the lack of supportive infrastructure, especially power and space, and also lack of personnel in some counties to operate the machines were the main reasons the machines were idle. He recommended the need to reconfigure the design of the project to inform the needs of valuation and audit.
In 2020, one of the key things that we noted is that there are machines that were already delivered but were lying idle in a number of health facilities in a number of counties. And the two main reasons why these machines were lying idle is that there was a lack of supporting infrastructure, particularly power and in some cases space for the ICU machines, HDU machines, and theater. Then the second reason is that there was, in some counties, they did not have personnel to operate those machines, the renal machines, imaging machines, and so on.
Additionally, he further stated that to inform policy decisions and improve healthcare services delivery, the entire report is to be subjected to the Senate for approval, in anticipating engaging the public in terms of what should be done to reconfigure the design.
Now, we anticipate that, given that a task force has already been constituted to go through the entire project in terms of its performance, the current status, to basically undertake some review. We anticipate that they will call the public or consult the public. I'm not sure when that will happen, but obviously their report will have to be subjected or will have to go to the Senate for approval. So I anticipate there will be two stages of consultation. Once the report by the task force is out, but also as the Senate will be going through that report. Now, the idea of this, or the objective, one of the objectives of this forum, is to elicit and to share some of the findings with the civil society in anticipation of public being called to engage on the process, so that the public can give their views on the project in terms of what should be done to reconfigure the design so that we don't continue to experience similar problems as we have. Yeah.
With a rise in cases of non-communicable and traffic accident injuries, compounded by inadequate medical personnel and low specialized health infrastructure, owing to the reality of fiscal constraints, which has been the defect in Kenya's health sector, the government, through the Ministry of Health, launched the Managed Equipment Services Project on behalf of 47 devolved units. James Odhiambo, GBS News.
Once again, a big thank you for joining this live broadcast. The SMS line is 21144, GBS TV Africa on all our social media handles. Let's take a very fast break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Talking, a program where we share stories of people who are changing the world.
Where are the jobs? Where do I get the next money from?
And what it brings out is that it can be done. Most of us, or most of the entrepreneurs, one of the things that they have failed to know is to think that you're having a solution without really a well-defined problem.
When you go to college, you go there alone. You fill the application forms alone, and at the end of the day, you either graduate alone, you don't graduate as a group.
If there is a dream in you, go for it. Don't stop. When the opportunity comes your way, do it excellently.
Behind every successful person, there is a mindset that propels them to live that successful life. And at Talking, we want to bring those people closer to you so that you can be able to listen to their stories of perseverance, their stories of overcoming limitations and also challenges, with the keywords of happiness and also challenge.
Nakukaribisha tena katika makao makuu yako katika ulimwengu wa michezo.
Yoga is not a sport. Yoga is actually a way of life. Ukiona FIFA inaingilia kati, it means that the FIFA rules have been violated.
From day one akiingia kwa academy yako, unamwambia masomo na talent lazima ziende. The moment unasikia masomo imeenda chini, hata time out. Hata hiyo time out kwa football na kando.
Yeah, wanawake ni wengi actually mpaka saa hizi. Tumekaa ni kama tumekuwa wanawake wamekuwa wengi kuliko wanaume. Kuna wale ambao ni artistic. Yes, wanapenda mambo ya kuigiza.
I am coded to look for solutions.
You limit yourself, not the sport doesn't limit you.
We say a dedicated women-only show that focuses only on women.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back. You're still watching GBS News at 9. Today, Tuesday, the 18th of April, 2023. The Institute of Surveyors of Kenya have today condemned the invasion and destruction of private property witnessed recently across the country. Speaking when he addressed the press today in Nairobi, the institution's president, Abraham Samoei, appealed to political leaders to immediately have a conversation on the issues being raised to find amicable ways of resolving the issues devoid of property destruction and loss of lives. Let's take a look.
Surveyors have today condemned the invasion and destruction of private property witnessed recently across the country. Speaking when he addressed the press today in Nairobi, the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya's President Abraham Samoei urged politicians to stop using land and property as weapons to settle political scores, but promote peaceful coexistence among all citizens.
Our attention is drawn to the continuing invasion of private property taking place in different parts of the country. We note with concern that these criminal acts seem to be on the rise, and little or no action is taken by the authorities to bring these incidences to a stop. The Institution of Surveyors of Kenya strongly condemns these actions and calls all citizens and leaders to exercise utmost respect for property rights, which is not only protected under the Constitution, but as provided by the law.
According to Mr. Samoei, land is an emotive issue in this country and has been a source of many conflicts, resulting in death and wanton destruction of property. And the law is very clear on how land is owned and how land ownership is protected.
Land is politically sensitive, and a mix of issues relating to access to land and politics is a dangerous mix. Land is an emotive issue in this country and has been the source of many conflicts, resulting in death and destruction of property.
The Surveyors Institution further made the following demands to the government and Kenyans at large. 1. It demanded that politicians to stop using land and property as weapons to settle political scores but promote peaceful coexistence among all citizens. 2. The institution demanded protection of all property as enshrined in the Constitution regardless of who owns the property. 3. The surveyors body appealed to political leaders to immediately have a conversation on the issues being raised and to find an amicable way of resolving issues devoid of property destruction and loss of lives. 4. It appealed to the security agencies to expeditiously investigate the invasion of properties with the view of preferring charges to individuals found culpable. 5. The Surveyors Institution further appealed to all Kenyans to respect and uphold the right to property of all description. The Constitution of Kenya 2010 accords everyone a right to own property anywhere in the country. Hilary Kabila, GBS News.
37 categories who comprised of 35 individuals and 5 companies in the Kenya National Theatre were awarded today by the Cabinet Secretary of Youth, Arts and Sports Affairs, Honorable Ababu Namwamba. The awarded were winners of the last year's second edition of it and was the first group to receive recognition from the government through its Talanta Hela initiative, which is aiming at monetizing talents in the country and improving livelihood of local artists. Here are the details.
7 categories of the Kenya National Theatre, which comprised of 35 individuals and 5 companies, were awarded today at Norfolk Hotel by the Cabinet Secretary of Youth and Sport Affairs, Ababu Namwamba. The awarded were the winners of the second edition, who are the first to benefit from the Talanta Ela initiative, which is a program in the new government that is aiming at converting talent to money. Speaking during the event, the CEO of the Kenya Cultural Center, Michael Pundo, thanked the CS for honoring the pledge and recognizing artists in theatre at such times when funds are hard to come by.
We are very grateful for the Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Namwamba, for first seeing the need that thespians and winners of the theatre awards need to be recognized, but more importantly, for honoring the pledge. And not just honoring the pledge at such a time when finances are hard to come by.
He's saying that in his regime, through the partnership with the Ministry of Youth and Sport Affairs, they want to continue to work with artists and help them grow and contribute in improving the livelihood of those who engage in art.
At KCC, we continue to work with artists to help them grow and also to grow the theatre and performing arts in the country. But we also want to contribute in our small way to make an improvement in livelihoods of those who engage in the art or basically creativity.
In addition to that, the chairman of Sport and Culture, Dan Wanyama, who is also the MP Wembuye West, saying that the issue of ignoring talent is a story of the past, but also urged young people to join the Kenya National Theatre with the aim of advertising and showcasing their talent.
This time round, make sure that a hustler who actually told down there should also be encouraged and helped to grow and make money out of the talent that they have, so that the issue of ignoring talent should be a thing of the past.
He confirmed that in the next budget, more will be allocated in the Ministry of Art, Sport and Culture so as it can help, since this time round, creative economy is a key as far as Asla government is concerned.
And as I come here, because where I sit, we are the ones to appropriate funds. I want to confirm here, as the chair of that committee, that this time round, in the next budget, we will be able to give much more than what has been given to the Ministry of Arts, Sports and Culture, so that at least we can get enough.
To echo his words, the CS of Youth and Sport, Honorable Ababu Namwamba, saying that this government is aiming at creating an enabling environment for artists in the country so as to improve their living standards by monetizing their talent.
Good people, this ministry is keen on creating an enabling environment for artists to thrive, to contribute to the socio-economic development of this country.
The CS urged parents, in the same way they emphasize on education to their children, the same way they should put emphasis on talent too.
And Talanta Hela is about sending a clear message, even to our parents, that the same way you give emphasis to your child to study law, I'm a lawyer, or to your child to study engineering, we want you to put the same emphasis for your child who wants to be a thespian, for your child who wants to be an actor, for your child who wants to be a musician, for your child who wants to be a dancer. The same way you emphasize.
He urged the corporate to invest in theatre and assure them that the government will tax evade all who will give sponsorship, all who will directly invest in talent in the national theatre.
And we want to encourage the corporate world. And I'm sending a very clear, strong message to the corporates. Put money in theatre. I want to see corporate sponsorship in theatre. I want to see corporate sponsorship around the Kenya National Theatre. I want to see corporate sponsorship in the Kenya Theatre Awards. And government promises you, for every shilling you put in theatre, we will give you a tax rebate. We'll give you a tax break for every investment in the theatre.
Speaking after the event, Alakok Ntome, one of the winners today, who is a producer and a technical director in the Kenya National Theatre, expressed his joy after seeing the recognition from the Ministry of Youth and Sports.
My name is Alakok Ntome. I am a theatre producer, director, and also a technical director in theatre, both in sound and light. So I'm happy to be here today and to see how artists are being celebrated, and we are being celebrated. It's taken a while. Now what we hope for is to make art a living.
Ntome saying that the future is amazing and it's high time that you need now to take time to speak about our culture.
It's amazing looking at our culture. I think right now it's high time we need to celebrate our writers, to celebrate our actors, and to create futuristic work, to speak about our culture, to speak about our traditions, and to be able to celebrate ourselves.
On the other hand, Claire Wahome, also a winner today, who won as an actress on the lead role, thanked the ministry for recognizing them, terming the recognition as a motivation to continue to do more and of higher quality.
Ina umuhimu sana kwa sababu mbeleni hatuko tunapata huo hatuko tunaonekana ama hatuko tunajulikana, lakini inamaanisha kazi ambayo tunaifanya inapatiwa umuhimu, na hiyo sasa inatufanya tukue na haja ya kutengeneza michezo aina mbalimbali na pia ambayo ina quality ya juu, naweza sema.
Reporting for GBS TV, I'm McDonald.
Indeed, that is a step in the right direction. And now away from that to matters international, Russian President Vladimir Putin has visited security forces in parts of Ukraine that Russia says it annexed last year, as a group of 7 foreign ministers meeting in Japan condemned a Russian plan to station nuclear weapons in Belarus. The Kremlin said Putin visited the Kherson and Rozhak regions, attending a military command meeting in the former and visiting a National Guard headquarters in the latter. The Kremlin did not say when he made the visit, stating that in Kherson in the south, he had reports from commanders of the airborne forces and the DEPA army, as well as senior officers who briefed him on the situation in the Kherson and Zaporozhye regions in the south. Jennifer Macau with that report.
Kherson, Zaporizhia, and Luhansk in the east are the 3 of the 4 regions that Putin proclaimed annexed last September. Ukraine and its Western allies rejected the annexations, and the Russian forces only partly holds. Russian troops retreated from the city of Kherson, the regional capital, last November, and have been reinforcing their positions on the opposite bank of the Nero River in anticipation of the Ukrainian counter-offensive. Ukraine and its Western allies say Russia is waging an unprovoked war have been incremental to come at a huge cost to both sides. A Ukrainian counter-offensive has long been expected after the months of attritional warfare. Stepping up pressure on Kiev supporters, Putin said last month that Russia would station short-range, so-called tactical nuclear weapons in close ally Belarus, which also borders Ukraine. Russia says the deployment was forced upon it by the expansion of the NATO military alliance towards its borders. It was the first time Russia had said it would station nuclear weapons on the territory of another country 3 decades ago, and appeared to raise at stakes, at least symbolically, in an intensifying standoff with the West over the war in Ukraine. In Japan, G7 foreign ministers on Tuesday condemned Russia's plan to station in Belarus as unacceptable. They added and said any use of chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons by Russia would have severe consequences. The war in Ukraine has killed 10,000s of people, leveled.
Thank you very much, Jennifer Macau, for that international news. And that news takes us to the sports news. But first, you're going to have a quick break. Now, do tell us your thoughts on the Azimio decision to call off bipartisan engagements. The SMS line is 21144, GBS TV Africa on all our social media handles. It is a chilly evening. Do make sure to keep warm. And it is always a pleasure to have you here with us. Always keep the conversation going. It is time for the sports news. But first, let's take a quick break.
Nakukaribisha tena katika makao makuu yako katika ulimwengu wa michezo.
Yoga is not a sport. Yoga is actually a way of life.
Ukiona FIFA inaingilia kati, it means that the FIFA rules have been violated.
From day one akiingia kwa akademi yako, unamwambia masomo na talent lazima ziende. The moment nasikia masomo imeenda hivi chini, hata time out. Hata hiyo time out kwa football account.
Yeah, wanawake ni wengi actually mpaka saa hizi. Tumekaa ni kama tumekuwa wanawake wamekuwa wengi kuliko wanaume. Kuna wale ambao ni artistic. Yes, wanapenda mambo ya kuigiza.
I am coded to look for solutions.
You limit yourself, not the sport doesn't limit you.
We say a dedicated women-only show that focuses only on women.
Everywhere, GBS.
Evans Chebet defended his title in the men's Boston Marathon yesterday as Ellen Ombiri claimed the first place on the women's side. World record holder Eliud Kipchoge finished the 6th while Benson Kipruto finished the 3rd. The Cabinet Secretary of Youth and Sport Affairs Honorable Ababu Namwamba and the President of Athletics General Tusei sent a congratulatory message to the all Kenyan participants for flagging the Kenyan flag, terming the high competition as a Kenyan race. McDonald with that full report.
The 127 Boston Marathon took place yesterday with 30,000 participants from nearly 100 countries taking place. Kenya was represented by Evans Chebet, Ellen Obiri, Eliud Kipchoge and Benson Kipruto. Evans Chebet emerged the first on the men's race, while Ellen Obiri emerged the first on the women's race.
And Chebet in 2:06.51 takes full advantage as she will come to line and celebrate with a huge smile a Boston Marathon victory.
I can't believe it, she says.
Evans Chebet was the reigning champion of the competition as he won on the same venue last year. Chebet finished the race the first in 2 hours 5 minutes and 54 seconds and is the first Kenyan to win the title in back-to-back years. Helen Obiri, who took part in the competition the first time, finished the first in 2 hours 21 minutes and 38 seconds on the women's side. The 33-years-old is a two-time 5,000-meter champion who is the only woman to have won titles in indoors, outdoors, tracks, and the cross-country. She has won 6 out of her 8 competitions. Early after the race, the Cabinet Secretary of Youth and Sport, Honorable Ababu Namwamba, sent a congratulatory message to the two for flagging the Kenyan flag high, noting that the Boston Marathon is a Kenyan race since athletes from the country have been doing absolutely well in the competition.
On behalf of the Ministry of Youth Affairs, the Arts and Sports, and indeed on behalf of the whole government of the Republic and the people of Kenya, I sit here this evening together with General Tuwei, President of Athletics Kenya, to send our very hearty congratulations to Evans Chebet and Helen Obiri for flying the Kenyan flag high and winning the Boston Marathon today. Once again, the Kenyan flag has flown high, and Chebet and Obiri have continued a very proud Kenyan tradition that has made the Boston Marathon our own.
The CS was accompanied by the President of Athletics, General Tuwei, also acknowledged Benson Kipruto and Eliud Kipchoge, who emerged 3rd and 6th, respectively.
And really, I must also acknowledge our other Kenyan athletes who performed exceptionally well. I want to congratulate Benson Kipruto for placing 3rd in the Boston Marathon main race, and Eliud Kipchoge, who placed 6th. We are so proud of all of you.
Eliud Kipchoge, who has won 4 out of the 6 major competitions, which include Chicago, Tokyo, London, and Berlin Marathon, finished at number 6 in 3 minutes and 29 seconds and was dropped around 19 miles in his Boston debut in a race of famed hills. Kipchoge took to social media after the race and said that it was a tough day for him in spite of pushing himself as far as he could, but noted that sometimes there are days you cannot push the barrier to greater height. On his side, General Tuwei congratulated Evans and Helen for the great win, noting that it is not easy to win the men's and women's race at the same day in the same competition.
And I want to, on behalf of Athletics Kenya, and all the athletes and all the officials and all the athletes fraternity, to congratulate very, very sincerely Evans Chebet and Helen Obiri for bringing this very good news to Kenya once again. Of course, Kenyans have dominated this for quite a long while, and they have not let us down this particular time. And it's not easy sometimes to win both the men's event and the women's event at the same time, the same day.
Tuwei urged all other marathoners in the country who are remaining in this year's programs to emulate Helen Chebet's record, and also congratulated Kiplangat, who earlier won Rotterdam Marathon the previous day.
And I want to urge all the other marathoners that are remaining with their programs this year, that they should emulate what these two have done. I also want to congratulate Kiplangat, who won number 2 position yesterday in Rotterdam Marathon, only yesterday. So you can see the weekend has been really a Kenyan weekend.
Reporting for GBS TV, I'm MacDonald.